such as marine, oil and gas, renewables, aerospace, automotive, precision engineers, steel fabricators, and many more. If you've ever wondered what a cluster is, and I do get asked this question quite a lot, I think this quote's a pretty good summary. It's by Lord Sainsbury in a McKinsey report called Industrial Revolutions. This is the quote. Much has been said in recent years about the importance of clusters. They're complex, economically significant ecosystems in which people can meet, exchange ideas, develop innovations and create businesses together. Clusters are regarded as exciting, vibrant places where something in the air draws together world-class talent and delivers fresh products and innovations to the marketplace. Excuse me. So that's why we do what we do in the Rail Cluster. Just finally, we've delivered over 620 hours of one-to-one support for our SMEs, and that's still continuing. We've run 14 informative events, and this will be our 15th, and we've shared 5 technical and market sector reports, all of which you can find on our website, www.scottishengineering.org.uk/Rail Cluster. Just as a final thing to say, we're exhibiting tomorrow at Rail North of the Border, along with Transport Scotland. So if you're going, please do come and say hello. It'd be lovely to meet you face to face finally. And I think that's just about all from me. We're currently in a 5-year extension part of the Rail Cluster project until the end of May, as phase 2 of the Rail Cluster project's being developed. So we'll keep you updated with progress on that. On that positive note, I'd like to properly introduce Peter Ritchie, Regional Managing Director, and Vinnie O'Halloran, who leads the ARQ partnership. Peter has widespread experience in civil engineering and construction, which is something he's very keen to share, giving his time up to mentor and engage with university students. Vinnie is a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineers and is passionate about innovative thinking leading to safe and efficient delivery of projects. And finally, just for those who've joined just now, a tiny bit of housekeeping. We're recording this event, so if you wouldn't mind keeping your cameras off and making sure your mics are muted so that we get a good clean recording for those who are unable to attend. And just a reminder too, if you've got any questions at all, please pop them into the chat facility and we'll get to them at that point in the proceedings. And with that, that's it from me. I'd like to hand over to Peter. Thanks, Peter.
That's great. Thank you very much, Shona. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd just like to echo those comments in terms of welcoming everyone to this afternoon's event to support the Rail Cluster. And you know, I'm delighted that people took the time out of their day just to learn a little bit more about what we do here at AmcoGiffen and at ARQ. So hopefully those slides are coming through cleanly. My name's Peter Ritchie. I'm the Regional Managing Director for AmcoGiffen in Scotland. I'm joined by Vinnie O'Halloran, who is Operations Director with ARQ. And if you can have a look at the next slide, in terms of today's agenda, what's important to me is I think that we're taking the time to engage with our supply chain, that we understand some of the priorities of our supply chain and how we can do more to support and work smartly with our suppliers. I'm keen that I bring you up to speed in terms of AmcoGiffen's business, what it is that we do, where we work, how we work, and who we work with and for. So we're going to do a bit of an overview in terms of the business. I want to introduce the supply chain strategy that we adopt here at AmcoGiffen, just give you an idea on how we work with our suppliers and how we see that working going forward. And in terms of the capabilities and pipeline, I'm just really keen to impart the opportunities that we have coming up over the next 1 to 2 years, what we've got real visibility on and what our work bank's looking like going forward. I'm then going to pass over to Vinnie, who's going to introduce the ARQ business, what their purpose is, how they're set up and what their primary focuses are, and again touching on what the capabilities and the pipeline are for the ARQ business. As Shona said, if you please feel free to use the comments function on this just to engage. I'm conscious that it's a one-way conversation right now, so please feel free to drop comments in, any questions you have. I'll try and pick them up as I go, or if not, we'll catch them all at the end of the Q&A session. And then before we finish today, I'm just keen that we capture any next steps in terms of feeding back. So in terms of AmcoGiffen, who are we? So it says there, we're a leading partner in the design and delivery of complex multidisciplinary engineering, construction and maintenance projects. Ultimately, we're a civil engineering company who are predominantly based within the rail sector. As the subsequent slides will show, we do the majority of our work within rail. It's certainly our specialist skill set, and it's where our technical capabilities are best applied. That being said, we are starting to diversify more and more into broader civil engineering, and as the subsequent slides will show, we're starting to do more work in a wider transportation and energy sector. So across the UK, we've been delivering projects for over 50 years now. In terms of the size of our operations, we're approaching 300 million in terms of annual turnover UK wide, and we directly employ more than 1,200 people across the UK. So we have a national delivery function, and then we've got that local strength for our clients. We're very much Scotland focused in terms of what you're going to hear today, and that's about as much as you'll get in terms of the national presence that we have. So focusing on Scotland, see our annual turnover in Scotland is just over £70 million. We're looking to improve that this year. I think we'll be closer to £78 million in turnover this year. So you can see a real growing business, a thriving business in terms of the work that we're doing for our clients here in Scotland. We've got 250 directly employed staff and a diverse client and framework portfolio. As I say, predominantly we're working rail. That is where our background comes from, and that's where the reputation's grown from. We are starting to do more and more work with other local authorities, government agencies, and it is almost entirely with public sector organisations. We have significant presence in terms of Network Rail's capital delivery portfolio, and also with the reactive civils and buildings asset maintenance, where we're doing over 1,200 remits per year. So it's a very active part of the business still. And just that last point there, AmcoGiffen and ScotRail, we were the winner of the Transport Team Partnership of the Year in 2020 for Rob Royston Station. So I can, with legitimacy, say that we're an award-winning contractor. In terms of our markets, so we've got 25 regional and national clients in total, focusing predominantly in transport, environment, energy, ports and marines, mining and aviation. Rail's the primary sector, and in terms of Network Rail's overall contractor and supplier list, we are currently the 6th in terms of their overall spend. We've got in-house design capability. We also use external designers. A lot of those designers will be familiar to you, but we do an awful lot of design and build. We're doing building asset maintenance and renewal work as well. And in terms of within rail, we've got a number of frameworks which provide us our route to markets across the UK. So to say in Scotland, we've got the Network Rail Capital Delivery Route Services frameworks. We work for train operating companies, the freight operating companies. We work on light rail and metro. That's where and then we work for the devolved transport bodies like Transport Scotland and AME Highways. So you can see where our skill set is formed within that rail sector, and we're trying to apply that as not just to rail, but to sectors that are outside of that rail industry, where we can transfer the same skill set into those niche markets. In terms of the Scotland region, say we are currently the Scotland provider for the Lot 3 SNE renewals and general enhancements framework. And then in terms of the Network Rail route services, we're also delivering the framework for building asset management projects, civils asset management projects, signalling minor works, minor drainage works, the slab track implementation, level crossing renewals and distribution and plant. Some of these frameworks are more vibrant than others. Others, whilst they are routes to markets, are probably not getting as much activity as others are. And down the right-hand side of that slide, you can see where our certainly Network Rail have been our primary client, but also doing work for ScotRail, Hitachi, and LNER. And then moving outside of the rail sector, as I keep touching on, we're doing more and more work with Scottish Canals. We're seeing the repeat business through Scottish Canals as being a real opportunity for the business, and it's a growing part of our business. So really exciting, a really exciting prospect there. We're currently delivering the SIGI framework for Scottish Canals, and we're also based on the Crinan East and Crinan West, doing lock gate replacement. So huge amount of work coming out of there, and again, it fits the client profile of who we want to be working for. Clients that are in the public sector, that have assets that need renewals and enhancements, and show all the right behaviours in terms of the commercial behaviours, the collaborative behaviours through project delivery, and can offer us visibility and repeat business. We've done some work in education with University of St Andrews, doing some small retaining wall work there. In terms of highways, we work on Transport Scotland contracts. We're currently based on site on the E77, doing the Carlock Wall project for AME as a part of a Transport Scotland contract. And we've got a number of local authority frameworks that we currently sit on, including the likes of Glasgow City Council, Dundee Council, Aberdeenshire and Murray Council. And energy is definitely falls part of the expanding portfolio of AmcoGiffen, and the opportunity that exists within the energy sector. I think we've seen more and more of a profile given to the energy sector in the wake of the green recovery post-COVID, in terms of the COP26 coming to Glasgow in November last year. We're starting to see increased budgets and increased level of commitments from our clients in the energy sector, and SSE and Drax are two very important clients to us. So in terms of how we work with SMEs, we have a Network Rail commitment, so I guess a framework commitment and KPI, which is to achieve a 33% target of our annual expenditure to be spent with SMEs. I am very proud to say that in Scotland we're achieving 52% of our annual supplier spend is with SMEs, which is one of the best results amongst our peers. We'll continue to look to grow that. And if you look at the spend profile over the last couple of financial years, we saw 22.5 million of our spend passed on to SMEs in 1920. And then the last financial year, we've seen £25 million. So an ever-growing portfolio of work is seeing an ever-growing spend with our SME community. And I think that last point there for me just sums it up. We depend on our SME community, we depend on our supply chain, and they are very much a function of us at AmcoGiffen and the performance that we deliver. The ability to align our values and our objectives with our supply chain is key. Knowing that we can deliver quality safely is ultimately what we're in business to do. So it's so important that we have the right supply chain that are well aligned to our projects. In terms of the aims of our strategy, so what we're looking to do is just to enhance our overall business performance. We want to work with the right partners. We want to build trusted collaborative relationships through early contractor involvement. We want to work closer with our suppliers. We want to see them as very much part of the team that we can present in front of our clients and work collaboratively, and move away from a more transactional approach that was maybe more familiar to people in years gone by. It's so important to us that we manage delivery of our projects safely and in a timely manner. As I said before, we need to make sure we're aligning those values with our supply chain. So important to us that the focus is on safety and quality. We want to engage with our supply chain respectfully, make sure it's a success, and I think we do that through early engagement, building that trust at the earliest possible stages. And as we've touched on already, so much of our work comes through frameworks. Frameworks where we have visibility of the work bank, where we've got the ability to use our time in pre-contracts to develop schemes, to understand them, to manage, assess and mitigate risks, and to do that with our supply chain It's so important to me. And then finally, focusing on maximising innovation opportunities and trying to drive added value into our projects through that relationship. It's not lost on me that our supply chain and the SMEs that we work with is very much where the good ideas, the fresh thinking comes from. And that's what's going to drive value into the contracts. It's important that we then engage with our suppliers at the right time and that we are able to leverage those good ideas and that value into our projects and ultimately deliver a better quality product to our clients. So in terms of, just in summary, how we actually deliver that strategy, it's through developing long-term relationships. It's through sessions like this where we can engage with the supply chain, with SMEs across the country, build awareness of what our pipeline looks like and where the opportunities lie, and start to develop relationships from these points. Having clear, open communication channels, making sure that challenges are understood as early as possible, that we are managing, mitigating these challenges as early as we can and as professionally as we can through collaboration and showing the right behaviours. And developing trust at the earliest possible stage is key for me. We want to focus on delivering quality, service and value, and then that's clearly tied into the health, safety and sustainability point as well. Safety should really be a function of a good quality job. It should in theory just happen. And it's important to me that we start to understand that through the early contractor involvement stages. We've got a commitment to SMEs. As I said before, 33% is one of our clients' targets that they've asked us to deliver against. We're exceeding that and we'll continue to try and push that further. Responsible sourcing, making sure we're working with the right partners, understanding who they are, where their values are and how they align to our business, making sure they properly represent our business and our people within the business. And say, just to drive innovation through that early contractor involvement, we've got the enviable position that we are in early with our clients. We're left in terms of the programme development. And that gives us that opportunity to build the trust, build the relationships with our supply chain and ultimately drive innovation, good ideas and fresh thinking. So in terms of what our pipeline is looking like coming up in the year ahead, in terms of our renewals and enhancement framework for Network Rail, see a lot of activity going on. We get great visibility of the Network Rail work bank, and you can see there's a lot of bridge works. We've got 16 underbridge renewals and maintenance projects, 5 platform renewals, 18 culvert repairs and renewals, and 3 tunnel maintenance projects that we're delivering. So that's, some of those have already started, but most of that is still to come. So again, huge opportunity in terms of what we've got in the calendar ahead for Network Rail. Looking into the following year, you can see there's still a significant amount of work to go at in terms of 20 underbridge renewals, 5 overbridge renewals, 5 retaining walls, 3 tunnels and several culverts that we'll be replacing as well. So all of that work that's shown on this slide and the previous are all where it's coming through the framework. We've got good visibility, early design development. It's got all the opportunity for early supply chain involvement, to get good ideas, to get innovation into these projects baked in from the earliest possible moment, and to understand where project risks lie, to try and manage that risk as effectively as possible and really drive value back into the project. And outside of rail, what we've got coming up this year, as I say, Scottish Canals are proving to be a fantastic client to work with. Great repeat business, good value work for us as well. We're doing a lot of work in terms of the civil engineering on the canals, in particular in Crinan and the SI-GI framework. We're doing this lock gate installation where we're going in and replacing the old timber lock gates in the Crinan Canal, replacing them with steel gates, and it's all the enabling works and that come along with that, which is incredibly tricky, real niche skill set, and I think unfortunately for the canals, it's been work that's probably not been invested in for a long period of time. So we really are developing a niche skill set around the canal work, and getting ahead of the pack there. In terms of our work with Amy, so bespoke civil engineering highway schemes, largely for Transport Scotland in terms of where that AMI portfolio lands, but the significant investment being put into the asset management portfolio within Transport Scotland, and it's an opportunity that we continue to exploit. So we continue to develop that relationship. We're looking for additional opportunity with AMI, and we see that's been a real growth area for us. And then finally, in terms of SSE, we've got the Civils and Tunnel Strengthening Framework with SSE. So again, it's early contractor involvement, good ideas and innovation, and we're looking at a number of schemes within their work bank. Hopefully, be out delivering the Tunnel Aqueduct project very soon. That we're hoping to get a contract awarded for that in the coming weeks. So a significant piece of work there at Tunnel. And that just continues to see repeat business coming through from SSE. And we've ideally, with all these clients, trying to create that virtuous circle where great delivery equals more opportunity, and it continues to come back round. And the frameworks merely act as our route to market in those instances. So a really exciting time ahead for us. I was just wanting to provide you with a bit of who we are and what we do, just to then cover what our supply chain strategy is and how we want to work with our suppliers, and then finally just cover up what the pipeline looks like in terms of what we've got coming up over the next year. So at this point here, I'm going to hand over to Vinny, who's going to do an introduction to ARQ. Over to you, Vinny.
Okay, thanks very much, Peter. If you could skip to the next slide, it'd be great. Afternoon, everyone. Again, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I know it's sometimes a bit painful with Teams and PowerPoints, and that seems to be our day-to-day life at the minute, but it's great that everyone's taking the time out after the lunch to come and listen in. As Sean and Peter mentioned, I'm the Operations Director for ARQ, but before we get to introducing ARQ, if I could just spend a wee couple of minutes just chatting through the overall decarbonisation and climate change agenda that Network Rail are up against, and just outline how we believe we can help and how we can use you guys to help us. If you move on to the next one, Peter. So that's a sort of broad challenge statement about climate change and Network Rail land. Where Network Rail currently are at the minute is, from a carbon point of view, rail is a very clean mode of transport. It's less than 1% of carbon output for infrastructure. And the main thing for going forward for Network Rail, as far as decarbonisation, it isn't to try and reduce that 1% in any great shape or form. It's really to provide that modal shift to allow freight and passenger car transport onto trains. And that's where we'll get our biggest bang for our buck. You move on to the next one, Peter. So a sort of little schematic about what that timeline looks like. So it's all driven towards 2050, where UK infrastructure needs to be net zero. And as part of that, particularly up here in Scotland, we're a wee bit ahead of the game as usual. So our commitment in Scotland is to have passenger diesel-only trains by 2035, which is going to be a huge challenge. I mean, this was set out as a 15-year sort of scheme project. We're already 2-3 years into that, and there's been a little bit of traction, but it's only just now gaining that traction. So in the next 12 years, we've got 1,800 single track kilometres of new electrification to erect here in Scotland. From a UK government point of view, it's not as clear cut. There is no legal obligation to 2035 or 2040, but there is a commitment, as I mentioned earlier, a government legally binding commitment to reach net zero in our infrastructure by 2050. So that all equates to another 1,300 STKs of OLE UK-wide. So it's a massive challenge. Generally in the UK, at the peak of our electrification during CP5, we were doing 400 STKs nationally per annum. That's where the whole industry in the UK could get to. Between now and 2035 and 2040 in England, we're having to do 500 to 600 single track kilometres year on year for that 12 to 15 year period. So it's going to be a massive challenge. And the biggest challenge we've all got is capacity, capability and skill set. And that's where we need, the supply chain, the SMEs and the rest of the sort of tier one contractors to all pull together and really try and shape an efficient electrification programme The main thing for that industry, if you like, is that we get a rolling programme of electrification so that we can continue to learn. When we picked this up at the beginning of CP5, no one had electrified anything really in the UK for about 20 years. So we were left with a sort of blank canvas. The skill set wasn't there, the capability wasn't there. And we spent the first couple of years of that programme really just building up a capability that allowed us to start. So this time we really need to get off on the front foot. And luckily up here in Scotland through CP6, we did continue to deliver electrification through Egypt, through Stirling, Dunblane, Alloa, and also through the SHOTS project. So as I mentioned earlier, although there is a drive within Network Rail to decarbonise and electrify, because it is efficient as a whole life cycle cost, it's probably the most efficient mode for Network Rail, opposed to diesels and batteries and hydrogen you may have heard about. But it also eases that congestion. It gets transport, freight, passengers back onto trains. The other key for us is jobs and growth. Through the, in Scotland, if we've to deliver 1,800 STKs over the next 10 years, that's about a £2 to £3 billion investment from the Scottish Government that will come through Tier 1 suppliers, through our designers, through our client, through the supply chain and through into SMEs and suppliers. You move on to the next one, Peter. So just as part of ARQ, and I'll sort of go through how ARQ is all set up in a minute, but what we've been doing over the last year or so is going around various clients, Network Rail, some of the Fox, some of the metro suppliers, and actually just asking where can we help. And the sort of recurrent themes are on this sheet. I won't go through them all, but the big recurrent theme is there is a lack of trust within government to actually go and invest in electrification. A lot of electrification projects over the last 10 years have ran over budget, they've ran over programme, Great Western electrification had a lot of bad press as it went through that development. Before it actually got to construction, it was pretty much canned. And I don't think we can forget that, from a government funding point of view, we're up against schools and hospitals, and the climate that we've got at the minute post-pandemic, they are very, front and foremost of most people's minds. So it's making sure that we've got that bang for our buck and we can deliver efficiently. The design to cost agenda is very much on Network Rail's radar at the minute. From start to finish on an electrification project, it was costing about 2.5 million per single track kilometre. There's a great ambition initially to get that below £2 million per single track kilometre, and that's a sort of break-even point for Network Rail. But what we all have to do collectively is start off at that point, that sort of £2 million per STK point, but very, very quickly drive that down through innovation and the use of technology. So that's where, you may have heard that there's a sort of target of 26% efficiency saving. That's primarily where that's came from. All right, Peter. So if I could just, even the graphics are working, brilliant. If I could just introduce ARQ. So ARQ is made up of AmcoGiffen, REL, Rail Electrification Limited, and QTS, who you probably know mostly for civil engineering, earthworks, devegetation, and fencing works. So all of those three companies are owned by the Renew Group, who are an umbrella company led by Andries Liebenberg, who used to be the managing director at Amco. So we're all part of a unified group of companies under Renew. We all report back to Andries, and that's fantastic for me. I've got one port of call, and that's where our liability, our open door policy as far as Network Rail goes. We're all owned by the same company, and we have that leadership and direction across the three businesses. Fortunately enough for us, we have managed to continue delivering, as I say, through CP5 and CP6 and some of the electrification schemes up here in Scotland, and that's going to continue into CP7. We do a lot of our work in-house, so we have a lot of in-house plant labour, but primarily from our supply chain, we spend about 35 to 40% on materials, on design, on that sort of innovative plant, but also specialist labour when it comes to testing and commissioning, for example. And also when you look at the geography of where a lot of the electrification schemes are going to be in the next 10 to 12 years, there's a vast geographical spread, which ARQ on our own cannot manage. So we will be looking for supply chain partners up to Aberdeen, up to Inverness and in between. And just that we sort of note at the bottom, our ambition, as Peter mentioned earlier, it's all about safe, efficient delivery. We rely on our reputation. Our reputation is everything. And if we can continue to deliver, that then gives us the follow-on projects and that trust from Network Rail to continue our delivery. Next one, Peter. So just sort of the way we are split up as part of the new group. AmcoGiffen, as Peter mentioned, primarily civil engineering, but we also do quite a lot of building work. We do power and distribution, and we do LV and HV. We do structural renewals works, and we have our own in-house design capability. But again, most of our design is managed externally by external consultants. From an REL point of view, they give us the whole suite of installation capability from when an overhead line foundation is put in, they put the masts up, they do all of the small part steel work, the cantilevers, through the wiring, and as I mentioned earlier, into testing and commissioning. We also do our own power distribution, mainly on the sort of HV side. QTS, well known for earthworks and drainage, fencing, very innovative when it comes to vegetation management, but we also have our own piling in-house capability, and we also do a lot of our own survey works. Big part of QTS's capability is in training, and probably a lot of the SMEs on the call just now have sent operatives through QTS training facilities. We're just building up at the minute. We're able to do OLEC 1 and OLEC 2 training in-house with QTS, and the ambition is that we progress that through all the way to OLEC 4 and OLEC 5 supervisors to give that sort of consistency and message, that behavioural consistency through our training. Next one, Peter. So big thing for us is that we are able to manage that whole rail systems support to Network Rail. So you see on the little slides there, you know, as I mentioned before, we do structural renewals, piling, design, all the way through fencing, platform works. But what we don't do in-house at this minute in time is any signalling and P-way. In our mind, we're not best placed to do that. I think we need to be honest in ourselves where our capabilities lie. So that capability comes from Network Rail's existing suppliers on signalling and P-way. Up here in Scotland, you're probably aware of the sort of the Track Alliance through Babcock. Signalling is predominantly driven through Siemens. But what we will do and what we do is that integration to make sure that we deliver a whole rail system output to Network Rail. From our supply chain, I mentioned earlier, you know, signal and P-way, but also OLE design. That's a massive part of us. A lot of our projects that we're getting involved in just now is right from that concept, what used to be Grip 2, now in the sort of pace world, project speed world is design development. And it allows us to shape not just the sort of design, but also the program, the methodology, and the buildability. One of the key things for us, and again, reaching out to the supply chain, is how do we manufacture our products? How do we deliver off-site so that when we do go to site, we're not disrupting railway passengers and freight from going about their daily business? A key for us is that efficiency in doing things off-site. Next one, Peter, if you don't mind. Again, just to sort of give you an overview of some upcoming opportunities. We mentioned the rolling programme of decarbonisation, which is phase 2 CP7. So the intention being that when CP7 comes along, that projects are shovel ready. But I think we all know major electrification schemes, decarbonisation schemes, take at least that 2 years to go through the design development phase. So we're seeing that starting now. They're up on the Aberdeen to Central Belt, you know, there's survey works going on. Just in the near future, we're hoping that through the REF CP6 framework, that Amco are on, that we start to see some of that route clearance where we can go in and inspect, evaluate low-lying structures, bridges, power cables, and make everything ready so that when we do get to the stage of electrification, we get a clear run at it. Again, Edinburgh to Perth, very, very similar. That route clearance works, hopefully start this year. Certainly the design development is on Network Rail's radar as we speak. Winchborough Station, that's a project we've been working closely with Network Rail and the private developer to get off the ground. We've been through the GRIP 3 auctioneering, the site's been chosen. The next stage now is getting that through funding. And with a fair wind, that'll get into the next level of design development later on this year. But we're not just a sort of Scotland-based company. We do work, primarily a lot of our work is through Amco frameworks in the Network Rail Eastern region where we are just now. We are hoping to get on a minor OLE framework, which is a £70 million framework for the next 3 years in the Eastern region. And also in that same region, they're already looking forward now to CP7 and what the OLE framework will look there. The guidance that we're getting at the minute is they will take 2 suppliers through for that region to provide all OLE support, both north and south of Peterborough. So great opportunities coming up, some really big projects, not just in Scotland, but as I mentioned there, in the Eastern region with MML and TRU already up and running. So a really, really exciting time, but we can't deliver this efficiency ourselves. We need the support of the supply chain and SMEs to give us that, you know, the clever ideas, the good thinking, especially in these design development stages. So again, any thanks for listening in. We will provide our contact details so you can get in touch directly with myself and Peter, and feel free to do so. Don't think you're cold calling. We want to hear from people. Thanks very much for listening. I think we're going to go and do some questions if we can now, Peter.
Thanks, Vinny. Shona, I don't know if we've had any questions come up through the conversations bar.
Yes, we do. Steve Pierce. I don't know, Steve, if you want to ask your question directly or I can ask for you. Sometimes it's quite nice to put your camera on if you want to. If not, I'm happy to do it for you. Oh no, here we go. Hi, Steve.
Hi there, and thanks for the presentation, guys. Very, very interesting. How do you deal with telecoms in the region? You talked about signalling and that, but how do you deal with the telecoms aspects?
So we've got signalling and telecoms frameworks that we're delivering for Network Rail across Scotland. So that's an AmcoGiffen framework at this stage. So that forms part of our capital delivery business. So we've got those frameworks for years to come. The work bank's looking pretty healthy. I didn't share that today. I just sort of predominantly focused on the renewals and enhancements frameworks in terms of the rail capability. But yeah, there's this S&T work there as well, and sort of significant volumes of that coming through.
Could you share that work bank at all, Peter? If I get in touch with you?
That wouldn't be a problem. We'll pick that up after, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a fella called Ian Mackay who runs that for us, Steve. So if you pass your details over, we can put you in touch with Ian.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We've just got a comment here from Craig Purcell. I think that's how you say your name. I hope I'm not saying it incorrectly. Craig is saying that he could help with signalling design GRIP 3 to 5. So I don't know if you would like him to get in touch or.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think we're always happy to hear from people who can support us, and I think we do have, in terms of signalling design and in terms of the sort of S&T works that we do have some in-house capability. We do have in-house design, but we don't have the capacity to be able to deliver everything in-house. So we tend to take a blended approach of what we can do internally to maximise our resources, but then we go external for a number of packages, and that's not just limited to S&T, but also in the wider civils portfolios as well. So we do have if you call them the tier 1 of designers that we use, but also a lot of the work we do with it being slightly lower cost works, it suits it suits the nature of the works to use slightly smaller design consultancies who've got improved agility to respond to the demands of the projects, and can just offer a more better value for money in terms of what we're looking at.
Brilliant. William Mitchell's asked a question. If you'd like to ask, William, if you're there. Or
no, I don't know if you can hear me, see me.
Hi, William.
Hi. No, it's a really interesting presentation in terms of the sheer volume and scope of work that you guys are doing. And so you touched on it just there, actually, around about the agility of a small team. And that's precisely what I run here, which is a product design engineering consultancy. It's outside the civils realm, but there are certain areas that would potentially, we would love to get involved in. But I mean, it is an open question as to whether that's something you guys would be interested in, sort of small projects you can throw over the fence type thing for a small team.
I'll just jump in there, William, just as an example. One thing we're developing at the minute, and we will be looking for help on, is we are looking at a prototype timber cantilever product.
Right.
At this minute in time, the prototypes, for example, were designed and manufactured in Germany. And we're looking to do that locally. So we're in partnership with Mott MacDonald to take that forward with Network Rail. But again, we're looking for that sort of product design and the manufacturing facility be done here locally. That's a big selling point for us. That's just an example of what we're looking at the minute.
Okay, that's super. Well, should I just get in touch with you directly then?
Yeah, please reach out. Absolutely.
Okay, super. Right, I will. Thank you.
Great stuff. We've got quite a few questions coming in. This one's from Dan Gallen. Is Dan there? Would you like to? I think actually, to be perfectly honest, Vinny might and Peter have maybe covered this, but please put on your camera if you'd like to. Hi, Dan. Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I got you, Dan.
Brilliant. Super. Thanks for the presentation. It's great and hearing a bit more about what's going on. It's basically just trying to see, Index does site access control, so it's all that software and linking up the entire workforce. So I think about 50% of our work is mainly done within rail work and Transport for Wales and other projects in England. So would we be introducing it to yourselves, or would that be going to the Renew group? What would you recommend?
Yeah, again, Dan, if you've got something that would help with that, obviously we work in a lot of remote areas at the minute. Getting track access when you're only getting an hour and a half per night is absolutely key to everything that we do. We do use various bits of software, but I wouldn't say we're tied to any one in particular, and they're definitely not all tied together, that's for certain.
Yeah.
So we use OnTrack for quite a bit of our stuff.
Yep.
But again, if you've got something that you want to reach out to myself and Peter or some of the rest of the team, we can quite happily do a wee Teams presentation. You can talk us through it.
Brilliant, fantastic. Yep, appreciate it.
I'd certainly welcome that, Dan. We'll share our details at the end of this, so we're able to pick up conversations out with this group. But be more than happy to understand more about that. Be great.
Brilliant.
Yeah. We have our own in-house planning team, Dan. So it's really putting you in touch with those guys.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan. I saw Jordan raising his hand. I'm not sure if. Did you have a question, Jordan?
How you doing? Thanks for having us on. My name is Jordan Nelson. I'm the MD of Nelson Track Solutions. We supply contingent labour nationwide. So we currently work with QTS and REL. It was just to see who I'd speak to about Amco.
Yeah. Should we pick that up after, Jordan?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep, that's no problem. I'll be able to support in terms of who the best person is to speak to in the business, and in terms of where you can provide that resourcing. But no, that'd be great. Thanks.
Right, nice one. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank
The next question is from Lauren Bossack. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know if you'd like to put on your camera, Lauren, and ask, or I can do it for you.
Yeah, I can do that. So, hi, my name is Lauren Bossack. I'm a senior geotechnical engineer at RBA. RBA does actually do quite a bit of work with AMCO, some work with QTS as well. However, most of the work is within the structural and civils, not much in geotech, because RBA historically did not have an in-house geotechnical team. So I recently joined the company to grow our in-house capabilities. So my question was pretty much a bit different than would apply for us, because we're theoretically a supplier to AMCO and QTS. But what's your process for bringing in new suppliers into your frameworks, specifically design consultancies in civils, geotech, and structural?
So in terms of bringing in new providers to our business, we would just go through a supplier, basically a supplier competency check in terms of your abilities to undertake the works, and having a look at the sort of liabilities and the credentials of your company. So we would just, as the way we would onboard any supplier, in terms of who we can outsource work to under our frameworks, it's very much our gift. So we've got complete freedom and flexibility to put work where we want, so long as it meets minimum sort of specification criteria. But so we're always looking to try and broaden what that supply chain can look like, and where opportunities can go. I think what we recognise, in particular in the world of design, that there are big organisations there that certainly have the capacity, but we don't always get necessarily the service that's right for the opportunity. You know, and we predominantly deliver high volumes of lower cost projects, and with that it comes at pace. It comes, as I said before, the need for agility and that responsiveness. And we don't always get that from some of the larger organisations. Their governance processes can slow them down, and it can be quite cumbersome. Fantastic when you're doing the bigger work, but when you're doing the small, more reactive type of work, it's less user friendly. So there's different tools for different jobs, but certainly in terms of how we onboard people, it would just be the same process in terms of requesting the supplier information, documenting that, and taking it through our supplier onboarding process.
Just on that, Lauren, sort of Peter mentioned earlier, we've just started a new framework with Scottish Canals where it is GISI, so it's that geotech element of design development. That framework's now with AmcoGiffen. It will run for the next 3 years. So it's a very good time to get involved in that side. So if you want to, get in touch, we can get you in touch with the Canals team as well.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. We will do. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you, Lauren. David Maxwell's up next, if he's there. Hi, David.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys.
Hi, David.
Wasn't necessarily really a question, but more of a statement, really. We have, Peter and Vinny, made contact and worked to support your efforts over a number of years now at Van El. What's perhaps not known from an SME point of view, if you like, is that we do have a GI division. We do have a design team that's based at Kirkby at our headquarters. And both those teams are actively looking to make efficiencies, as Vinny rightly touched on, with respect to OLE delivery. We know that the decarb programme is the hot banana, if you like, at the moment, and we're very keen to be able to support any of the teams with respect from an ECI point of view, get involved early, bring the innovation to the table, and therefore make a package that would be attractive to the end clients, whoever that end client may be. And it's just to reiterate the fact that, yeah, we have a decent Scottish arm, which I head up for the Van El business. And just to reach out to you guys again, we have delivered in the past, as I say, successfully, and we're very keen to be, partners to all the teams nationally.
Thanks for that, David. I know we met up probably 6 months ago when ARQ was in its infancy.
Yeah.
I think we're a wee bit further down the line that we know where we'd like to be, where the sort of pile-in OLE foundations going through QTS. We have a small capability, as you know, but it's not a Van El capability. Probably 6 months ago, there wasn't much on the table, but there certainly is now. There's a few frameworks in Eastern, as I mentioned, David. So it's maybe worth getting getting that discussion going with ourselves, Andy Steele and Bruno again?
Certainly. It's something we are keen to obviously keep it at the forefront of people's minds, and the ECI point of view really is a major driver for that, I would say. We do offer the sort of full encompassing package from the GI function through design, development, interpretive reports, and then moving through to the obviously project delivery from a foundation OLE point of view. So just you've got the end of I'm on the end of a phone at any time, guys, if you're needing anything support wise. That's
great. Thanks for that, David. And I think just to touch on in Vinny's presentation, he spoke about how we've been targeted with this 26% efficiency drive by Network Rail around the decarb programme. And I think when we looked at this last year, we recognised that was only really going to be feasible through ECI, good ideas, innovation, and ultimately trying to drive a situation where you're not doing things through good ideas and innovation, how we can basically make best use of the assets as they already are. So I think that link up with, as you say, with having that full package, that multidisciplinary offer is really attractive. So that's great. Thanks, David.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
A couple more. I'm just noticing it's nearly 5:02, so I'll crack on. Dave Franklin, you're up next. Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, sorry. Guys, thank you very much for your presentation. Really, really interesting. I'll try and keep this very quick. You mentioned quite a lot about, or at the beginning, about asset management. Our company works, supplies into asset management programs for Crossrail and London Underground. Just looking to get a little bit more information about what sort of scope of works for asset management you do, whether you're involved in installations, and just to get a little bit more information on that side of the business, if that's possible.
So asset management for AmcoGiffen is reactive maintenance on the rail network, and I think it's really anything between a couple of bricks that have come down in a tunnel to multi-million-pound landslip, and replacing the OLE and all the works that come with that, and it's everything in between. So I think our lowest value remit's probably a couple of £100. Our highest value one is just over about 4.3 million in terms of asset management, and it's reactive maintenance work, ultimately to keep that rail network operational as it currently is, to prevent any speed restrictions being put in place or any safety impacts that may occur. A lot of work around drainage, and it's traditional civils, if you like. So it's drainage, it's putting in retaining walls, there's bits of de-veg and vegetation clearance that's coming out. So that's typically what it is. I know I've not been very specific there, but say it really is a very broad set of remits that we receive.
Yep. Okay. Lovely. So it's more sort of construction based, not sort of electrical or.
We don't tend to get involved in the electrical.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
I think we've got time for sneak in one more, and if anybody else has asked questions, we'll make sure they get passed on to Peter and Vinny, and they can get back to you. Yannick Longbottom.
Hi, yes, thanks for that, and thanks for your presentation today, guys. I'm from Ritta. We worked with Amco for a good number of years now, and Vinny, I know you mentioned Ian there in telecom side. I know Ian well. We have ideas that are looking to address the decarb side, but also by the same measure, the sort of resilience and safety side of things within the systems elements for rail infrastructure. Is it something that AmcoGiffen are interested in looking at and kind of discussing further after this?
I wouldn't turn that opportunity down, Yannick. I'll be honest, it's something that I don't really have a huge amount of knowledge of. So I'd certainly be interested in learning a bit more about it. So let's get something set up off the back of this so we can understand more, and then be able to make that call. But it certainly sounds interesting.
Just from a decarb point of view, Yannick, I think you're probably aware that for us in particular and Network Rail, it's all about rail systems now. It's not just about going and putting up the OLE, and a lot of that procurement, if you like, coming through Network Rail, as I mentioned earlier, in the eastern region, when they're looking for an OLE supplier, they're really looking for a rail system supplier to lead that discipline, because I think we've all been there in the past where we try and do decarbonisation projects or electrification projects with a big multidisciplinary civils guy leading it. So you find that all the bridges are done well, all the foundations are done well, but the rail system doesn't tie together. And I think that would be something that would be really interesting just to get your views on.
Yeah, no bother. We'll follow up afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Right, cheers, thank you.
Thanks, Janet. There's one more. I don't know if you've got a chance just to do one more question, Vinny and Peter.
Fine for me.
I know it's 3 o'clock, so we'll make it quick. Matthew Caven, are you there? Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, how's it going, guys? Great presentation, very informative. I'll be quick, so I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time. I know it being 3 o'clock, and you've probably already answered this question with someone else that asked the question earlier. But in regards to site access, I mean, we deal with most the both the alliances at the moment, Central and Southern. It's more of a sense of how we can engage you guys up in Scotland. We've done a lot of work up there in the past. Currently on the supply chain for AmcoGiffen at the moment. And doing a lot of engagement with John Myskew and Ian Purdom down here in the south. So it's just a case of really getting that opportunity, how we can get in front of you guys to present and demonstrate our services and solutions, really.
I think first and foremost, Matthew, if you drop us a wee note, give us a sort of one pager on what you provide, and then we can get the right people in an hour's call just like this, because it's a two-way thing.
Definitely.
We would love to hear from you guys doing what we've just done. That would be brilliant.
Excellent. No, yeah, as I said, if you guys are happy to share your contact details, then we can look to get a Teams meeting set up in the near future.
Yeah, when we send the slide pack out, myself and Peter's emails will be at the bottom of it.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
That's us now. Thank you so much, Peter and Vinny. We're now at 15:02, so you've given us 2 extra minutes, which we're very grateful for. Just a huge thank you. I think it was a really great session, full of information. Just to confirm, if anyone's still on the call, we'll send out a link to the recording and the slide pack with contact details for AmcoGiffen and ARQ. And just to say a huge thanks to everybody in the audience for joining too. And I hope you have a good rest of your Wednesday. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for setting it up, Shona.
No problem.
Thanks a lot, Shona. Thanks everyone for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.